in the heat of the Nigerian Civil War, when Biafra was cut off from the world and fighting for survival. One man defied all odds to make a difference. Count Carl Gustav von Rosen, a Swedish pilot, humanitarian and adventurer, took to the skies with small aircraft, striking fear into Nigerian air forces and bringing hope to starving Biafrans. His daring exploits with the legendary Biafran Babies squadron turned him into a folk hero and one of the most remarkable figures of the war. Today, we explore the incredible story of von Rosen, the Count who became a soldier of mercy. Hi guys, welcome to Africa's Historic. On today's episode, look at a very interesting character, a man who risked his life for Biafra, Carl Gustav von Rosen, the Swedish pilot who chose to fight for Biafra. Do stay tuned and enjoy the ride. Nigeria is a typical West African mess of a country, only bigger and meaner. It's divided up as usual. The coastal tribes are Christianized, from sucking up to the European colonialists. The further inland you go, the drier and more Islamic it gets. The Brits grabbed the Nigerian coastal line from the Portuguese when they realized there was more money to be made and turned the two big coastal tribes, the Igbo and Yoruba, into overseers of the Nigerian plantations. That left a lot of inland Muslim tribes, the Hausa Fulani people of the Sahel, permanently pissed off, sharpening their knives and biding their time. The Hausa Fulani got their chance in 1963 when the last Brit in Nigeria hopped on a plane, yelled back to the natives, "Congratulations chaps, you are independent." As soon as the Brits bugged out, the tribal massacres got going. Muslims in the north hacked to death every Igbo they could find. They hated the smart asses from the coast, and now the redcoats weren't there to stop them from taking advantage. 30,000 Igbos were killed in a few days. The reason this time around these massacres, they say, was due to the fact that some prominent leaders of northern extraction, in both civilian and military, were murdered as a result of a coup that was carried out by an Igbo-dominated military personnel led by Major Chukwuma Cardinal Zogo. The massacres kind of soured the Igbo on the idea of one Nigeria as one big happy intertribal family. In 1967, an Igbo general in the Nigerian army declared the Igbo region was now an independent country, Biafra. The Nigerian army, a big sleazy outfit, begged to differ and invaded the Igbo region in the southeast Nigeria. The Nigerian army had 2,500 men. The Biafran Igbo army had maybe a tenth that many, but they were brave and smart. The Igbo had always been the brains of Nigeria. Every time there was a question of real battle, on anything like equal terms, the Biafran rebels won. They stopped the government troops cold, then grabbed tactical surprise by staging a long-range raid into western Nigeria. A risky advance like that, by untrained civilian recruits, which is what most of the Igbo fighters were, is really impressive. But sad to say, courage doesn't count for much in West African warfare. It's ruthlessness that wins these wars, and the Nigerian junta had it. Instead of facing the Igbo man-to-man, the Nigerian troops grabbed the coastal line around the Niger River Delta. This miserable maze of fever swamp was the supply route the Igbo needed. They stopped all food shipments headed for the Igbo territory and sat back to let the Igbo starve. The Biafrans were still winning every battle and losing the war like Lee in 1865, starved out, strangled from behind. They realized they needed to open the supply route and decided to take back the Niger Delta, and they got some help from outside. The best example, one of the few real heroes who get into this sleazy world, was a Swede, believe it or not. A Swedish aristocrat, no less, Carl Gustav von Rosen, volunteered to do close air support for the Biafran army, close down government troops and raided their bases, flying tiny civilian prop planes like Swedish Cessnas. Is that glorious or what? The mismatch in the air was total. The Nigerian Air Force had MiG-17 fighters and IL-28 bombers, DC-3 transport converted to bombers, and a few choppers. Those Yushin and MiG designs were the high point of Soviet military aviation. Don't kid yourself, the Soviets built some great planes. The IL-28 was a big, fast bomber with a bomb load of 16,000 pounds and a 3-man crew, including a tail gunner, manning twin 28mm cannon. You wouldn't want to tailgate one of these. The MiG-17 was even better. It might have been the best fighter in the world, When it went into service in 1953, and even in the mid-60s, it was good enough to win against Paramount Air Force in dogfights over North Vietnam. US pilots were way more scared of the MiG-17 than the follow-on model, the MiG-21. The slick moves and big cannon of the MiG-17 was one of the big reasons the US Air Force stopped thinking of fighters as man-sounds, all speed and no finesse, and went back to the planes with nose cannons, maneuverability, and started teaching air combat at Top Gun schools. If you find this video worthwhile, please take out some time to smash a like and subscribe to the channel, as it goes a long way in supporting our efforts. Thank you. Now let's get back to the video. Von Rosen hatched a plan in collaboration with the French Secret Service to strike back at the Nigerian air power.
Captain von Rosen, why did you join the Biafran Air Force?
Well, I had a month's holiday and I can't go down to Mallorca and bake in the sun and just enjoy life. I have a father of 6 children and 5 grandchildren. And I have seen people being shot to pieces, children being ruthlessly shot to pieces by Russian MiGs, months and months in Biafra. And as a man, I couldn't face my family sitting at home, so I went down to do my best to stop those MiGs to shoot the population of that country into pieces.
Disgusted at the suffering the Nigerian government inflicted on Biafrans and continuous harassment of international relief flights by Nigerian Air Force, Von Rosen volunteered to fly a DC-7 into Biafra with supplies. The Biafrans were so grateful and were fighting so bravely against all odds that Von Rosen warmed to them like he had with the Finns. The Biafrans needed help to deal with the Nigerian Air Force, which was fighting a nasty war even by African standards. In the whole war, there is not a single case of the Nigerian Air Force attacking a military target. That would have been dangerous and not nearly as fun as bombing refugee camps, strafing hospitals, and napalming freeing civilians. Von Rosen tried to find the Igbo some modern military jets, but nobody wanted to sell to the Biafrans for fear of upsetting the Nigerian government, a much bigger customer. So Von Rosen started thinking about small prop-driven aircraft. There is a long history of using slow prop planes in bush warfare. Even the United States Air Force, which has a major hard-on for afterburners and chrome, was forced to adopt a slow, armored CAS plane, the A-10. They hated it at first, but it proved itself in the Gulf Wars, when fancy toys like the Army's dog of the Army headquarters, the Apache, left the field with its tail between its legs. In Nam, the classic jungle air war, they used 2 planes that were slow as molasses, but did the job. One of the best and ugliest was the A-1 Sky Raider, a chunky World War II style plunger. The US Air Force hated it and was always trying to twist combat reports to make the F-4 look good and the Sky Raider look bad. But pilots agreed you were better off going in low and slow in the Sky Raider than zooming by in an F-4. Even the Sky Raider was like the SR-71 compared to little put planes Von Rosen built his force around. The MFI-9, a tiny prop-driven Swedish trainer that looked like those ultralights that people build in their garages. These planes could park in subcompact spaces at the Stockholm Mall. It had a maximum payload of 227 kilograms. Luckily, those Swedes were so skinny. Von Rosen bought 5 of these little fleas down the coast in Gabon, slapped on a coat of green VW paint to make it look military, and installed wing pods for unguided 68mm anti-armor rockets. Then he and his pilots, 3 Swedes and 3 Igbos, flew them back into Biafra and into combat. They blew the hell out of the Nigerian Air Force and Army. These little fleas were impossible to bring down. Not a single one was knocked out of the sky, although they did buzz home riddled with bullet holes. They flew 3 missions a day and their list of targets destroyed, including Nigerian airfields, power plants, and troop concentrations. The fleas turned their weaknesses into advantages in true guerrilla style. They were so slow that they had to fly really low, which made them almost impossible to hit in the jungle, since they never saw them till they were on top of you. The low speed made for better aim. Almost half of the 460mm rockets they fired hit their targets, which is an amazing score for unguided AS munitions. There used to be a joke in the Nigerian Air Force that if it wasn't the law of gravity, unguided AS rockets couldn't even hit the ground. The Biafran Air Force managed to destroy 3 MiG-17s and an IL-28 on the ground. Killing enemy planes on the ground may not be as glorious as shooting them down in a dogfight, but they were just as destroyed. The fleet also took a couple of helicopters, an airport tower, a Canberra bomber, and half a dozen supply trucks, and they blew away at least 500 Nigerian troops. It was one of the few glorious exploits you get in these wars. Why they haven't made it into a movie, I wouldn't know. However, von Rosen's fleas weren't enough to turn the tide of the war. The rest of the war turned its backs on the Igbo, let the Nigerians starve them into submission. The USSR sold Nigerians every plane, tank and gun they could cram into their shopping carts, and the British loaned their pilots to fly as Nigerian Air Force mechs, bombing Biafran civilians and blowing up convoys bringing food and medicine to Igbo villages. The famine in Biafra was the first time we saw pictures of African kids with skeleton arms and legs and big balloon bellies looking up at a camera. It was easy to take shots like that in Biafra because the whole country was starving. A year into the war, the Igbo had nothing left. No food, no armor, not even fuel, which is ironic when they were sitting on the big Niger Delta oil fields. Even the bravest troops can't fight when they are dying of starvation. So in 1969, the Nigerian army sent 120,000 men pushing through the center of Biafra, dividing the Igbo zone into half. It was like Sherman's march to the sea. It broke the Biafrans' backs. Early in 1970, Biafra surrendered. Nobody knows how many people died. A low guess is 1 million. The high ones may be 3 million. Almost all were Igbo civilians. The Nigerians pushed the Igbo for their upbeat behavior by freezing them out of the loot they got from oil revenues and other grafts, the one industry in Nigeria. For over 30 years, the Igbo have been watching the oil pump out of their land to buy more Mercedes-Benzes for a bunch of sleazy generals and politicians. They have got the right to be pissed off, but the Biafra War showed them that in Africa, right ain't much to do with it. Like the greatest Swede of them all used to say, God is on the side of big battalions. The Yoruba intellectual, Fola Oyewole, who fought for Biafra, recalled of all Westerners who served the Biafrans that von Rosen was the most idealistic and the one who cared about the Igbos as people the most. Despite his controversial methods, von Rosen will later be remembered for his efforts to modernize relief efforts to remote conflict zones. One of the notable figures assisting von Rosen was Lane Garrison, an ex-RCAF fighter pilot. He introduced von Rosen to a Canadian method of dropping bag supplies to remote areas in Canada without losing the contents. A sack of food was placed inside a larger sack before the supply drop. When the package hit the ground, the inner sack will rupture, but the outer one kept the contents intact. With this method, many tons of food were dropped to many Biafrans who would otherwise have died of starvation. Later models of the Malmo Flight Industry MFI-9 became the Saab MFI-15 Safari with official modifications developed from Biafran concepts to facilitate dropping of food supplies from under-weak hardpoints. Von Rosen also utilized this type in the Ogaden War. Von Rosen eventually left Biafra after the raids in mid-1979 when international and Nigerian government pressure increased and because the Swedish government strongly disapproved of his involvement. By 1969, before the war ended in January 1970, von Rosen had withdrawn from Biafra. Von Rosen was born in Helgesta, Flen municipality, southern mainland Sweden, and grew up in Rockelsart Castle. He was the son of the explorer, Count Erik von Rosen, co-founder of the Nationalist Socialist Bloc, and Baroness Mary Falk. He was the nephew of Karen Goring, the wife of Hermann Goring. Throughout his upbringing, Carl Gustav appeared to have serious differences in opinion with his family, which one author referred to him as the black sheep of his family. His brother Bjorn was a writer, graphic artist and painter, and his sister Birgitta Wolf was a writer and human rights activist. From an early age, Carl Gustav was interested in mechanics. His subsequent fascination with flying machines was unlikely influenced by his uncle, who was a fighter ace during World War I and later head of the German Luftwaffe. He was a student at Ludwig Body School from 1920 to 1926 and at the AB Aeromaterial Flight School in 1929. and took pilot's license test the same year. Von Rosen took the airline pilot exam in 1934. Von Rosen himself started his flying career as a mechanic before becoming an aerobatic stunt pilot in a traveling circus. When the Kingdom of Italy invaded the independent state of Ethiopia in 1935, Von Rosen joined the Swedish Red Cross ambulance mission. He also repeatedly flew casualties out of the battlefield under extreme dangerous conditions. These activities resulted in him receiving mustard gas burns during the use of the gas by the Italian Air Force. After his return from the war in Ethiopia, he went to the Netherlands to join the KLM, the first public airline in the world, and became one of their foremost pilots. Von Rosen's happiness with his second wife, Hanny, ended with the outbreak of World War II. She joined the resistance, was arrested by the Gestapo, and sent to Dachau in Germany. After the war, she committed self-exit in 1949. When the Soviet Union attacked Finland in 1939 in the Winter War, Von Rosen quit his job to fly bombing missions for the Finns. He purchased a KLM Douglas DC-2, had it converted to a bomber in Sweden, and made one operational mission in March 1940 against the Soviet Union with it. Later that year, as the Germans attacked the Netherlands, Von Rosen with the Dutch KLM crew flew a DC-3 with Dutch government documents to England and applied for service with the RAF but was turned down on the account his family was related to Hermann Göring. Von Rosen went on flying for the Swedish airline AB Eurotransport (ABA) from August 1940 until the end of the war. Between 1945 and 1956, Von Rosen worked in Ethiopia as the chief instructor for the Imperial Ethiopian Air Force. Afterwards, Von Rosen was employed by the Swedish charter airline Transia. The company was engaged by the United Nations during the Congo crisis in 1960. Von Rosen also served as a pilot for the Second Secretary General of the United Nations, Dag Hammarskjöld. However, Von Rosen was grounded by illness when Hammarskjöld was killed in an air crash while mediating in the Congo crisis. In 1974 to 1977, he flew aid for famine and drought victims in Ethiopia. The last action Von Rosen saw was again in Africa in 1977 during the Ogaden War between Ethiopia and Somalia. Again, flying famine relief for refugees, he was killed on the ground on 13 July 1977 during a sudden Somalia army attack in God at the outbreak of the war. He was buried in Gulale Cemetery, Addis Ababa. Von Rosen was married from 1932 to 1936 to Stella Maria Theresia Mael-Vilmark, and from 1938 to 1943 to Joanna Francina Kierman. In 1943, he married Gunvor Linnea Martin, daughter of the artist Seth Martin and Baroness Lily Falk.
To our surprise, after all denial from the British government, we found 6 Canberras on Enugu airport. I think it's a terrible role that the British government is playing in Nigeria, and I'm sure that the British people is sick of it now. And I sincerely hope that the public will so influence that the government either have to go or stop it.
Does the British aid and the Soviet aid in Nigeria match each other in some respect?
No, it's by far the British who make the war. Soviet is pulling out, according to my opinion, more and more.
Von Rosen was the father of Carl Gustav, born in 1932, Margareta, born in 1938, Yvonne, born in 1940, Asgrid, born in 1945, Eric, born in 1950, and Carl, born in 1953. Thanks for watching the video, guys. I really love to know your thoughts about this man, Carl Gustav von Rosen, and his contributions to Biafra. Please let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Don't forget to smash a like and subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification button to get more content like this about African history. This is Nalo from Afriverse Historic. See you in the next one.